Thank you everyone for joining in. I'm very excited about this webinar. We have been preparing for quite some time with Jan and Meinecke for this webinar, and I think it's you're gonna learn a lot from this one. Like one stat I wanna just kick off with here at Make. Last year we managed to triple our ROI from Google Ads through automating our conversion, sending our conversion to our to Google Ads. That was an amazing achievement that we did last year through the automation of conversions. And I think Jan, you had some great success as well with one of your clients, right?
Yeah, we had a similar result with the client. It was more on the, let's say, on the saving side, where we came in and noticed they were had quite a lot of budget allocated to one specific channel that was bringing in a lot of leads. But then after we were able to set up the offline conversions, it was actually a SaaS product, and we rather implemented some conversions around retention. So how many of these leads were actually still using the product after a month? And we really saw this one channel that was bringing most leads was actually performing worst in that metric. And we were able to, let's say, reallocate 50% of the budget to a lot more effective channels, which was good. I'm not going to name the channel because I don't want to hate on any ad network, because they each have their, let's say, their advantages. But yeah, it was definitely a good saving for the client.
That's awesome. And that's what we're going to be doing today. Like speaking, how can you achieve similar results for yourself as well? All right, so first we're gonna look at the agenda for today. We're gonna start with a quick introduction from myself and from Jan, and then we're gonna have 3 demos for you. So today is gonna be very actionable, how to achieve, how to do the automation, how to generate more leads. It's gonna be very actionable. We have 3 different demos for you, starting with capturing and storing leads, leveraging AI. This cannot be a marketing webinar without mentioning AI. So of course we're going to be mentioning AI today, and we're going to be finishing with sending offline conversions to the advertising platform. I think this is one of the most effective ways right now when it comes to marketing. Going to have some time for your Q&A. Please, if you do have any questions, you can already start adding them right now to the question and answers tab, not to the chat. You can still chat if you need, but if you have a question that you want us to answer at the end, please add it to the Q&A tab. All right, so let's start with introduction, and I'm just gonna start with Make. And if you are here in this webinar, I would assume that you already know about Make, so I'm not gonna waste your time explaining to you what is Make. But in a very small nutshell, Make is an integration platform that enables you to connect your different apps together, whatever app you have within your MarTech, and enable you to build, whether it's a simple or complex workflow, things that has needed developers before, especially connecting with APIs. Now business users can do that themselves. So I have amazing clients. Users love Make, and if you're not already a Make user, you're gonna love using Make. That's enough. We're gonna be speaking how to be using Make for your business throughout the webinar. But I'm gonna move it now to Jan. Jan, introduce us to yourself and Meinecke.
Yes. So hi everyone. My name is Jan. I'm one of the co-founders of Meinecke. Here you can see my 2 other very handsome co-founders, Piv and Alex. So what do we do at Meinecke? We help business teams, so really focusing on non-tech teams, whether that's marketing, sales, HR, finance, or ops, helping those teams leverage no-code and AI, so that on their own, without needing to, let's say, burden too much the tech teams, they can automate their processes and build digital internal systems. And we do this both by implementing solutions for our clients, and we also have a series of online training programs as well. We're a team of 7 based out of Berlin. And why I'm speaking here today, we're also a certified Make partner. So yeah, very excited, Leo, to be here with you and sharing some of these great demos.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jan, for being here. An amazing partner of Make. And let's kick this off. And I think maybe before jumping into the demos, a lot of people might think they know the answer to that, but I think it's still good to define it. What actually is lead generation?
Yes, so glad you asked, Leo. Thank you. Not that that was a prepared question ahead of
It's not.
time. So yeah, I found this very good definition from a source, Optimizely. You can check it out. I'll let you read the definition yourselves. But in general, what I like about this one, that it really encompasses the two main parts of lead generation. So first of all, being the fact of generating consumer interest. So creating some sort of value for your potential, let's say, prospects, and getting them interested into a sale. I'd classify this all as the content part of lead generation. And then we also have the technical part. So that really the digital process of collecting a visitor's contact information. And in general, what I would say is, as a marketing team, you should really be spending as much of your time as possible on the content part, that part that really generates value. So this is coming up with different lead magnets, with downloadable white papers, with free online courses, a lot of experimentation to see what you can give away to create the most value for potential prospects. But in reality, what we see is marketing teams are wasting way too much time on the tech part, and especially when it comes to a lot of back and forth between both the marketing team and the tech team. And this really slows down the lead gen effort. So what we're going to focus on in this webinar today is much more on the tech side of things, to really show you how this can be orchestrated with now, thanks to no code, a lot less effort than previously, and that your team can actually spend majority of the time on the content part.
Awesome. I think maybe one thing that some people confuse is once you say the word lead generation, they only think about B2B, right? But I think there's lead generation in B2C as well, and it's in multiple industries, right? So if you speak about in the legal industry, if you want to acquire some customers, you need to get leads who are going to be working, you're going to be working with. If you speak about the automotive industry, like there are a lot of industries that are B2C, not B2B, and they're still requiring lead generation. So I think it's very important to make this distinction that no, lead generation is not only B2B. It's depending on in your business. It can also B2B and B2C. So thank you very much for that. And I think, as you said, like a lot of people are still wasting a lot of time on the tech side. So maybe we can dive a little bit into this. So what is the tech side behind lead gen?
And we're dealing in twos today. So again, on the tech side, I would also split this into two parts. There's the one part, which is capturing leads from various different sources, and then obviously storing those leads in your CRM. So when we look at capturing leads, there's sort of some main categories that we see. So first of all, being the website builders that you're using. So for instance, whether it's Webflow, Wix, in the older days, WordPress. I still know too many people are using WordPress, but it's one that needs to be mentioned. And these website builders often have forms as an option, and you can obviously then capture data on your website. Then there's the form builders, which are more standalone. You could embed these in your website, but also send people directly to some forms that you might be building on Typeform or Fillout or Tally. And lastly, there's the ad networks themselves that have in the more recent years created these lead gen products where you can actually build your lead form within the ad network itself. So the person doesn't need to leave LinkedIn or Facebook, and they can share their information with you in a few clicks. And as maybe some of you avid Make users have noticed, these are all actually Make modules here that I'm showing in the screen. So I guess the main takeaway there is, thanks to Make, you don't need developers anymore to capture leads from these sources. And we'll obviously show that in the first demonstration. Now, if we look at storing the leads in your CRM, there are obviously many CRMs in the market. We're going to be focusing a bit more on the B2B side today, but some of the main ones, let's say, that you see here of like Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive. What's important to know here is when you're orchestrating your lead gen tech stack is that not all CRMs behave in the same way, and they don't all have the same structure. So for instance, if we look at Salesforce, they have leads and contacts to store information about people. They have accounts to store information about businesses. And then they have this opportunities object to store information about a potential sale. HubSpot, very similar. You just have one object when it comes to people, only contacts. And if we look at Pipedrive, and this is actually going to be the CRM that we're going to be using in these next 3 demos, but really remember that the principles that we'll show will be able to work with all CRMs. When we look at Pipedrive, you see that one's actually flipped. And for whatever reason, they have 2 different objects for what in Salesforce and HubSpot are opportunities and deals. They have leads and deals, which is the opportunity you use to manage your, like, let's say, sales likelihood events. So I guess the takeaway here is lead management, to actually do this properly from a tech perspective, does require you to get a bit of knowledge around your CRM objects and how they are set up.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think, like, speaking about this CRM, I think the important thing is we are not only storing the leads in the CRM, but also are sending this data from the CRM back to the advertising platforms, right? And that's what we're going to be speaking about today as well. So I think we have 3 demos that we're going to be going through. Maybe you can give just a very quick intro to these 3 demos.
Yeah, so for the first of all, what we're going to get started with is the one that I mentioned, so capturing leads from any source. And to do that, we're actually going to head over. So what I've prepared here is basically a demo lead magnet. This was built with a form builder called Fillout. And what we already have is a demo Pipedrive account. Before I go into the make scenario, Leo, did you want us to quickly go through, for anyone that's new to make, maybe just like how to get started in Make itself?
I think, yeah, that would be awesome if you can maybe open Make and just show people how does it look like and how to build just a very simple scenario. I think that would be useful.
So let's do that. When I head over to this tab here, so there's this beautiful purple button that you'll get very used to when you use Make a lot, create a new scenario. So in Make, these automations or workflows are called scenarios. And what you can basically do, Make has integrations with, what's the number, Leo? Are we up to 10,000 or?
Like almost there. I think we're above 1,700 already. So.
Okay. So they're adding more and more tools every single day. But for instance, if I would drop in one of those ad network forms that I mentioned, we can have a look here at LinkedIn lead gen forms. And what we could do is, for instance, trigger this scenario whenever someone responds to one of our LinkedIn forms. And I will just select one of the ones I've set up earlier. We could, for instance, if you're using HubSpot as a CRM, then go ahead and create a contact in HubSpot. And what Make allows you to easily do is basically take some data that you get from this module and move it in to your other tools down the line. And there is no limits, which we'll see in a second. You don't just need to connect 2 different tools or have 2 steps. Our scenarios can be a lot more complicated, which I will show you right now. So this would be the scenario that I've already set up, which is going to basically capture any leads that fill out my lead magnet here. And I want to send them into Pipedrive. Now, if we take a look at this scenario, you might be asking, okay, wow, why do we need so many modules here? And if we take a closer look, you can see there's some different objects that I'm working with. I'm working with not only leads, but organizations, people, which is let's say the Pipedrive equivalent of a contact. And then we finally have leads. So first of all, the reason why our scenario needs to look like this, if I actually go into Pipedrive and try and create a lead manually, you can see in Pipedrive, a lead can be connected to both a person and an organization. In my lead information here, I can't actually save any information like what's their email address. You can see this is blocked because this all needs to happen on a person level. If I try and add myself, it's going to say, hey, we don't have that person yet. You can create a new one. And the same goes for a company. If I try and add a company here, so every lead should be connected to both an organization and a person. And if we look also at our form, we're collecting different types of information. So the first name, the current position, and the email are data specific to a person, yet the company name and even the domain name of the email are probably information specific to an organization in Pipedrive. And lastly, the act of them actually downloading this is the act that's creating this lead. So let's break into this scenario. What I'm doing is I'm getting, first of all, my response from Fillout. And then I'm searching my CRM. Pipedrive is, do we already have a person in our CRM which has the same email address? And we're also searching for organizations based on the domain of the email address, because what we want to avoid is duplicates. We don't want to create 2 different contacts or 2 different organizations for the same company, because, for instance, a person could fill this form out many times, or multiple employees from one company could fill out this form. And so what we need to do is create a bit of logic here, and Make really allows us to build logic that normally only developers could. So what we're doing is we're searching for these objects, And we're basically setting them into what are known as variables. So if I find a person, I'm going to set their ID in a variable. And if I find an organization, I'm going to set that ID in a variable. And what we can do is create some logic here to say that, look, if there's no organization found yet in Pipedrive, we're going to go ahead and create one. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically just very simply mapping the name of the company that they filled out in the form and doing a bit of data manipulation to get the website extracted from their email address. And then what I'll do is I'll update the variable and set that with the organization ID that I just created. We'll see an example of this running in a second. We then do the same thing if there is no person found yet. We go ahead and create one. Very interestingly is what we can do here is already connect that person with the organization that we've created. And then lastly, what we want to do is actually create the lead. And so what we're dropping in here is we're giving our lead a title. So right now I've just called it generically lead magnet. Maybe if you had different lead magnets, you might want to add some custom fields here to save this on the lead as well. So that if the same person maybe downloads different lead magnets or different white papers, that data is all collected and stored in our CRM. So what do you think, Leo? Should we give this one a test?
Are you sure it's gonna work? Because like usually during demos things break. So let's see.
I'm confident. So let's get started. I'll just create, I'll use this name actually. This one's pretty good. We'll say, since we have a more advanced crowd in today, we'll say John Smith is the head of marketing. And let's say they are from Nike. They're gonna acknowledge what I'm gonna do here already. Let me just hit download. So this theoretically lead magnet would be on the way to their email inbox. If we have a look at the make scenario that has just run, so we can see this one has just run here. First of all, let me know if I need to zoom in a little bit. We see the answers here. These are the answers that were submitted in the form. It basically didn't find any people or any organization. So that means we created a new person or first of all, we created a new organization, Nike, returning the ID. We then went ahead and created a new person, John Smith, with the job title and connected that organization. And lastly, we logged the lead in our system. So let's head over to Pipedrive and see if that lead has made it over. I'm going to refresh here. And there we see lead magnet, Nike, John Smith. In just a few seconds, they made their way over to our CRM.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much. And I think like this scenario is gonna be moving now to like how to implement AI within this to add even more information or to have more details about that lead, which can help us in the sales process.
Yeah, 100%. And like the way what we've seen so far from best using AI, and we actually will show one case here, is in general, what we've seen is it's not so much that you use AI for one big use case, but rather many small use cases, which really add up and save a lot of time. So for instance, in this theoretical sales process here, a new lead came in, probably a salesperson would need to look at this, and maybe one of their first jobs might be based off the title, setting a persona of this lead, because based on the persona, we probably want to communicate with this lead differently. And in general, most salespeople are not only filling out one field, but maybe 10, 15, 20. And this is really what eats a lot of time. And we think this is a great use case for bringing AI in when we have these type of, let's say, classifications that need to happen. So I'll head over to my second scenario here, and we can see actually there's already one record in the queue. I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But what we're doing here is whenever a new person is created in our Pipedrive, we check if that job title exists. And then we're going to actually leverage the OpenAI module within Make. And we can actually programmatically now in a scenario chat with ChatGPT just like we would in a user interface. So here I'm basically taking the job title from that person and basically giving it some prompts. So saying, hey, look, if the person meets any of these criteria that classify them as an individual contributor, all the way down, if I can get to here, if they're a C-level, I want you to classify them as a C-level. And what we've also, this is very important whenever you're doing these classifications, we where is it here? There's basically an extra sentence here saying, say, if a title doesn't match any of these, I want you to reply in unknown. Don't try and make anything up. So if you're not sure, let us know that it's unknown. And then we can put a filter in here to say that if the result is not equal to unknown, then we want to update Pipedrive and set that new persona. So since we have one in the queue, I can actually run this so that new person that I just created is in the queue here. If this scenario was on, this is something that would just happen automatically. And you can see for the job title head of marketing, that was classified as middle management, which was according to our prompt. And if we go back into now Pipedrive, I can just refresh this page and hopefully that persona has been set. And when this scenario is on, I've obviously had it off for this demonstration. Every new person that comes in, if they don't have a title yet, this persona will just be set. And if you can think of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 examples of this all adds up and really, like, let's say, makes your lead gen and lead management efforts a lot more efficient.
Yeah. I think actually that's a very good point, what you mentioned about using AI in all of these small bits and pieces. Like, even when I speak about AI, if AI is just gonna destroy our jobs, we're not gonna have jobs tomorrow. But actually, in reality, when you think about it, it's more of an enabler, and it's not about creating one big project where AI is taking over the whole process, but just how can you leverage it in small pieces which are gonna improve the total process. All right, awesome. So now we covered 2 scenarios already, 2 demos. So the first is capturing the leads and storing them into the CRM. And now there's no manual process anymore. This is all automated with having different logic there, whether it's whether this lead exists, it doesn't exist. So there's no duplicates, and adding all the information for the leads, whether it's Pipedrive, again, any CRM you are using, we have a long list of apps within Make. And then the second demo that we spoke about was implementing AI, just one implementation here that we spoke about, but you can have much more. It's up to your imagination, but right now we're just enriching the leads data, and we're enriching it just with the level of management. You can do much more enrichment with AI. Actually, maybe before we move to the third demo, and we did not prepare that question, so I hope it's not very difficult. Did you do some other sorts of enrichment before using AI?
Yeah, so what we do a lot is we'd integrate other, let's say, quite expensive enrichment tools. So for instance, like Clearbid, there's a free one on the market called Big Picture. So based on the email domain of the person, like from what I have from my form here, all I can create, if I refresh this one, is an organization with a name and a website, right? That's not much information, but this is enough for us to probably bring in another enrichment tool like Big Picture. And what they will do is they'll probably give you back like 50 points of data on that company, like where their headquarters are, how many employees they have, what their revenue is. All these 50 points of data are super valuable, but can also be quite overwhelming for a salesperson. So what you can do is actually take the whole result of Clearbid, feed that into a ChatGPT prompt and say, summarize this and give me the most important details me as a salesperson needs to understand. Yeah. And you put your nuances in there. You tell them like what data points are most important for me to get the sale, or what data points are most useful for me when reaching out to the person. So it's a great way. I think like 2 big cases we see is either classifying data, saying, I'm giving you an input, you return 1 of 5 options, or I'm giving you 50 data points. Can you summarize this for me with just giving me the information I need to know?
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's very smart. All right, I think we are ready to move to the third part, the third demo, which is sending the conversion or conversion data back to the advertising platform. I think this is a very effective way to be optimizing your campaigns for the conversion that really matters to you, because in many ways, like if you're a SaaS company, if you just focus about signups, they are not always the best metric to be looking at. And again, if you, depending on whatever business you are in, just the first conversion is not always the most telling if this lead or this user is going to be valuable for you or not. And this is where offline conversions come into place, and sending the conversions data back to the advertising platform play a very important role. So Yeah, let's dive in.
But so before we get into the demo, unfortunately, we'll get there soon, but a little bit of theory to cover first. So I just want to go through like how conversion tracking works in a very high level and looking at the more traditional setup. So we're running some Google ads. A user will click on an ad and they will then land on our website. One important thing to notice here is what most of the ad networks are doing. They're appending some sort of attribution to your URL link. And in this case, what you see here, this is what's known as a click ID. Most of the major ad networks use this technology, but someone clicks on their ad, they send you basically in the ad network say, hey, when someone clicks on this ad, I want you to take them to this page, but then they're going to add some specific parameters to that URL. Then eventually the person might sign up on your website, like we saw with the lead magnet, and we send this conversion back to the ad network. And this attribution, if we're just doing on client side, is basically all the work is being done for us based on the pixels that we've dropped on the page. And what these pixels automatically do is they use this click ID. And so now we're going to show is this is the, let's say the client side way. How do we go about this when the conversion events are not happening on a website, but are actually happening in our CRM, and we need to send this later. So this leads to the very first tip that I'm going to share with you. And that is basically storing the click IDs in your CRM. So what I have already done, I'm not sure if some keen-eyed people may have noticed that in this lead that I signed up before, I actually appended a demo click ID from Google to this one. And if I look at that scenario that came up, let's go back into here. We have set up our form in a way that this is basically automatically captured. This one is not something we can like demonstrate through Make. There is a little bit of JavaScript involved, but one prerequisite is from your website, if you can capture these different click parameters, then storing them in your CRM can be quite beneficial. And so what we actually did is on the lead level, you'll see here I've created some custom fields for conversion tracking. And here I've basically added all the, let's say, custom fields for each type of click ID. So in this case, the lead that I signed up with came from Google. So only the Google click ID is filled in. And the LinkedIn values, the meta values are empty because they came from Google. It might be in some cases, if a person takes 2 website visits, they could theoretically have both a Google ID filled in because they first came from Google, and then a week later, they came from LinkedIn. And this would all be stored in our CRM at the moment that the lead is captured. So why would we want to do this? A few main benefits. So first of all, having this sort of marketing attribution in our CRM is going to be able to help, let's say, the sales ops teams and your marketing analysts identify what are the top performing channels in terms of sales performance. Next, also, it's going to help your sales team understand that lead's journey, knowing that whether they came from Facebook and a specific lead magnet or whether they came directly via your website on SEO, this might dictate or influence how they're going to reach out to that lead. And lastly, as we spoke about, this enables lower funnel conversion events. And why these lower funnel conversion events are very useful, we already spoke about it at the start of the webinar, but I'll give you a very, very basic example. If all we were sending back to the ad networks were the lead information, so whenever that person signed up, we have the front end pixel sending how many leads were coming. You could have a solution like this where we've had 2 campaigns running, we've spent the same amount of money, and it's very easy to see which campaign is better here. And this is how those ad networks work. What will happen is after this, the campaign A is going to start getting majority of your spending. The budget will shift towards this, and the ad network is going to optimize on what conversion you've told it to optimize on. In this case, campaign A gives us more leads. We should do more of campaign A and less of campaign B. But what happens sometimes in reality, like the examples we saw, that potentially for whatever reason in the messaging, campaign B might create less leads, but actually more of them convert. So when you have this information, clearly campaign B is the winner. And if we would have just stopped here, we'd basically be missing out on more potential deals by the ad network basically discarding campaign B in the first place.
Yeah, and I think maybe one thing that I always try to tell people is think about the different events that the user can do in your product or in their journey as a lead, right? So again, if it's a SaaS product, they sign up, and then after they sign up, they start using the product. There are gonna be multiple events that they can do within your product until at the end they become a paying customer. Usually there are multiple events that they might be doing. So you don't need to be sending only sign up and only the conversion event, but actually you can send the other events in between. And the same thing happened with leads as well, whether it's the B2B or B2C lead. So the other leads, now they download some content. Now they start speaking with the sales team. So these are all events which you can send back to the advertising platform, and you're just enhancing the optimization. And every conversion you can assign a value to. So I'm not gonna dive deeper into this, but just the main message I want to deliver here is, think of all the events that you can be sending to the advertising platform. The more data that you are sending, the better your campaigns can be.
Yeah, 100%. And what we're going to touch on now is purely just one of those examples. So let's say what would happen next, this lead would get qualified. And when it's ready, let's say it might be that they've booked a meeting, this would be then converted to a deal. And this is where I'm going to show you the example of when this, because we know only some leads that get generated, only a portion of those will be converted to a deal. And when that happens, that's when we want to send our next conversion back to the ad networks. So how this one looks like, and we can go into it here. So again, I'm using just a Pipedrive trigger whenever there's a new deal event. And this one, I've basically just got it set up when a new deal is created. What we can also do is when deals are updated. So as Leo mentioned, this would be one case where we send information back, but maybe if they get to the halfway point of our deal pipeline, we send another, and eventually we should also be sending it to the one deals. What we need to do here, the way I've basically got this set up, and let me actually get the data so I can show you what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead here and convert this deal, and we'll save this. And let me now just run this scenario, and it's going to say I want to use the existing data. That's that deal that I just converted. I've got a filter in place here so that these calls don't actually get made to the ad networks, because as I mentioned before, we're using dummy data. So we cannot, that Google Click ID that I used is not from a real campaign. So we would not be able to send this, but at least this will give you a idea of how this works. So if we look at our current deal that was just created, we see here when we look down, and maybe here it is, that Google Click ID is basically getting passed over from the lead. And for instance, if I look at like the Meta lead ID, that is empty. The LinkedIn ones will all be empty. From the lead, we don't get all the information about the person that we need. So I've got another module here saying, hey, I want to get all the data from the person. So we can also grab their email address, for instance. And then I've got a very simple logic here that if this deal has a value for the Google Click ID, I want to send a conversion to Google. If it has any of the Meta conversion signals, I want to send it to Facebook. And of course, lastly, if it has any of the LinkedIn parameters, I want to send a conversion to LinkedIn. And you could add in here TikTok, Twitter, whichever, let's say, ad network that you're using. And what we're simply doing here on the Google side, now, this is another one. All of these ad networks behave slightly differently and also offer you different possibilities of what data you can send. Obviously, Google is quite different to a social network like Facebook and LinkedIn. So they're going to match these conversions on different parameters. But what's quite consistent is they're going to ask you for this click ID. In the case of the way that let's say the default make scenario is set up for Google, you're not actually passing any information about the person. If we look at how it looks like for Meta, they actually more want information about the person, because then they could match those email addresses to Facebook users. But they also enable you to add these click IDs, and they also have a thing called a browser ID, and it's the same concept for LinkedIn. Now, one big, let's say, thing that we need to remark here, in general, the more data you give from a technical perspective now, the more data you give these ad networks, the more likely they are going to be able to match those conversions to the original campaign where it came from. Now, especially for those users in Europe, We do have to mention, obviously, around the user consent and GDPR. So this is not something that we can give advice on legally. That's something you need to discuss with especially if you're at a larger organization, with your legal teams. What I would say these click IDs are probably the lower level of a personal identifier compared to giving an email address. But from a technical perspective, the more data you share, the more likelihood you can attribute your conversions better. You need to decide for yourself where you sit at from a legal and consent point of view.
Great. Thank you very much, Jan. I think maybe one other thing to mention here, especially with generating more leads. So the first thing that you are doing here, you are sending more data to this advertising platform about which leads did convert and what value did they bring you. And what you can build based on that, you can build custom audiences, which I think this feature is available in most advertising platforms right now. So I want to target more people who are relevant to the ones who are providing value to me. And usually if you're using a CRM, you're gonna, if you have this information in the CRM, like this lead is bringing me X amount of dollars, right? Then you can be sending this data to the advertising platform to build a custom audience with your most valuable customers. So you can target other people who are similar to those customers. So I think like there's a huge value there in sending more information to the advertising platform. Awesome. Thank you very much, Jan. Like maybe before moving to the questions from the audience, again, everyone, if you have a question, please add it to the Q&A tab. We're gonna go into the questions right now. Just to kick it off from my side, for you who are implementing,
before
ahead,
we do that, just to wrap up on the demo side of things. So yeah, obviously just want to share like let's say 4 takeaways on this webinar about automating and maximizing your lead generation. So first of all, we saw that marketers can now orchestrate the tech behind lead gen. Stop knocking on the door of your developers. You can do a lot of this yourself. Able to do this, really try and understand the objects in your CRM and how they interact with each other. Leverage AI as much as possible to bring you more efficiency in your workflows. And finally, where possible, optimize on lower funnel conversions. Now, as Leo mentioned, it is question time, but while we go to the questions, I'll leave a couple of free giveaways up on the screen. First of all, if anyone is interested in knowing more around how you can leverage no code from an operator perspective, so from a business person trying to make your work more efficient, we do have a free course available. And for anyone new to Make, there's also 1 month free of their pro plan. So you can build out some of these workflows we shared today. And it includes 10,000 operations. So you can already build quite a lot of stuff, which is fun.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you are not already a Make user, I think, yeah, go ahead and make use of these opportunities to actually start using Make for free, and also like take the course with Meinecke. All right, so let me kick off the questions. So for someone who is building these automations for the first time, building these scenarios for the first time, what are some of the challenges or mistakes that you see people often doing?
Yeah. So the one that I probably see the most is on the Make side, understanding the concept of bundles. So everything we saw today was just one thing happening in a scenario. So one person filled a form in, one person, like one deal was created or one person was created. In some cases, what we use Make for is like, show me all my open deals, right? And then we might return a list of 10 or 20. And then the way Make works is basically every action that you drop into your scenario after that point will happen once for each of the items in your list. And sometimes this is intended and it can be good. And sometimes people can run into trouble understanding, okay, when do I need to maybe bring what's known as an array together into one level? That's probably one of the biggest challenges I see people when using Make for the first time. And then obviously, if you're getting a little bit further in it, Make out of the box have already, they already give you most of the, let's say, the most common actions from certain tools. But in the tools we use, we know you can do many things. So in some cases, you might need to go a bit further and start needing to use custom API calls. And that would be another hurdle that we see people running into.
Understood. Thank you very much. All right, so we're gonna go to the questions from the audience here. And if you have any question, please add it to the Q&A tab. And I'm just gonna answering like two common questions I saw from multiple people, right? So the first thing about the recording of this webinar, yes, the webinar is recorded. Yes, you're gonna get it through your email. We're gonna send it to you in the email. Also gonna be available on the website. So don't worry, it will be there. So this is the first one. The second one, I also see a couple of people asking about the templates, right? So the exact scenario that Jan was showing today, they are not
50 euros each, right? Is that what we said, Leo? 50 euros each for each blueprint?
50 and we split it.
Yeah, we split it exactly.
So yeah, the templates are not like those exact ones are not available on the website. But if you go to make.com, there is a list. There's a list of templates, and like they're very similar to the ones that you saw today, and even way more than that. I don't actually know the count. We keep adding a lot of templates every single day. We have a whole team building templates for you to make things much easier for you.
Yeah. And if anyone is interested in the blueprints, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can share the JSON blueprints with you for sure.
Awesome. So, sounds like you're not sharing the money with me now, but okay.
No, I was just giving value,
Thank you. All right, so let's start with the first one, which I think you more or less answered when you were presenting. Like, how does the duplicated shake work? Like when you are sending a new lead to whatever CRM, and you want to check if it already exists or not. How does it work?
So again, this is where it goes back to understanding your CRM, and it's also a decision you need to make. Me personally, I like a structure. So for instance, in the example that I showed you, I am creating a lead every time someone fills the form in, because I don't actually see lead potentially as such an important, let's say, important object in the CRM. Because what we want to know is if one person is downloading the form many times or downloading from many different lead magnets. For me, this is very useful information to have from like a one-to-many. One contact can download many lead magnets, theoretically could become a lead multiple times. I've seen others where they really don't like duplicates. So what you could also do in the scenario is not only search if a person already exists, you could also then search, does a lead already exist connected to that person? And maybe you just want to update some information on that lead. But this is really a decision you need to make. In other CRMs, what you would do is you create one lead, but maybe track different events. Like for instance, in HubSpot, you could actually track these as form submissions. It doesn't create a whole new deal or a whole new contact. But depending on the CRM, there's different ways of handling it. But me personally, I think it's very useful to know if someone is either downloading the same content multiple times or different content. Having that information in your CRM is very valuable.
Yeah, no, that's very correct. Thank you very much. All right, moving to the next one. I think more into the ChatGPT module itself. So like someone asking like how when to use the role system user and assistant, what to get the best result.
Yeah, so correct me, Daniel, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but from what we've, so basically user, what you would be doing, that is basically as if you're giving the final prompt, right? And on the system side of things, that is some extra instructions that you're giving ChatGPT. So in some cases, you might want to, like, this is what I would typically use for the system side is giving the instructions around like, hey, you are for instance, if it's writing content, you're an expert blog article writer. You've got years of experience. Every time you write a blog, your blog is exactly 2,000 words, no more, no less, this structure. So everything where you want the results. And then in the user side, I would keep it quite small. And that's where I'm basically passing the dynamic information. So if I were to create a prompt around a blog article, in the system side of things, I would put all the information about how it should be structured and that the ChatGPT understands its context. And then I would use the user to say, write a blog article about this topic.
Understood. Thank you very much. And I think we have Daniel here from our one of our solution engineers. Do you want to add something to that, Daniel?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Nice.
And we have quite a long question trying to just summarize that. So how to send conversion offline to Google Ads only once from our CRM?
Yeah, I could take this one. So probably you would set up a custom field in your CRM, let's say it's by drive again, where you would log whether that particular conversion or event was already sent. And whenever that deal is updated again, you will get that full payload of the deal with yes or no, like was it already sent, yes or no? And if it says yes, you simply filter out these events and you would not send them again. However, for example, if you are sending this to Google Ads and if you are counting just unique conversions, you can just keep sending it over and over. It doesn't really hurt. So it kind of depends. If your Google Ads is set to unique, you're fine. You can send it over and over. If you count every conversions, then you can have to set up filtering on the make side or somewhere in the CRM.
So what Daniel was mentioning there is after we send the conversion to Google Ads, we could add another module here, which is an update pipe drive. And we would check a box like conversion sent true. And we would add a filter here to say only bring deals into this scenario where the checkbox conversion sent is false.
Right. Thank you both. Again, like, yeah, someone was asking if you have some training and pre-built scenarios. So yeah, that's what we mentioned before. We do have a lot of templates on at Make, and we also have the Make Academy where you have to learn about Make, and also have in the blog a lot of inspiration to improve your marketing in general. All right, someone is asking how to scrap the ad ID in the workflow. Do you actually do that, Jan? Do you think this is needed to get a specific ad ID?
I'm not so sure I fully understand the question.
I think I get it, but basically it's the same problem, like to capture the gclit ID, right? The ad ID, you will pass it in the URL somehow.
Yeah.
And in Google Ads, you would set up final URL templates or tracking templates. And if you place the ad ID variable into there, it would come into the URL. And the script which is posting to Make on your website would simply set not only just the gclit, but also the ad ID.
Yeah.
And I can imagine use cases where you can compare 100 leads coming from this ad versus 100 leads coming from a different ad and see which ad has better performance. Not that easy, but certainly doable. So yeah, essentially you can capture like any parameter from the URL like this, right? Whatever you need, campaign ID, account ID, such
and it's
terms.
an important one. Like the tip I obviously gave was it's very useful storing these click IDs in your CRM. This is what I would say is maybe like the version 1 setup. When we work with clients that have a lot more data, this is typically data that would live in a data warehouse where you would actually handle all your attribution, and the lead ID would live in a data warehouse. And in more complex setups, a lot of these offline server events are being calculated and sent from there. This is really showing like, hey, if you don't have access to many tech resources, you can achieve similar results in your CRM. But of course, having a really proper tracking infrastructure, you would track all the page views and have that going into your data warehouse and track all of these Google IDs. What you can then also do is just save the GCL ID, the click ID, and through the Google API, you can actually return information about what campaign and what ad group and what ad that GCL ID is connected to. Google also gives you this information. It's just a little bit more of a technical setup.
Yeah. And maybe we're gonna close with the last question, which is, can we send the value of an offline conversion again? So if we close the deal, can we send the value of that deal? Which I think actually I think you should be doing that. So just moving it back to you and just to confirm sending this kind of information.
Yeah, 100%, exactly. And like what you could even really easily is map that to the value that you're getting from your CRM, so that it is dynamic. You could like hard code it here if you always had the same. Some ad networks let you hard code it when you create the conversion in the network, but best practice definitely, and especially on deal 1. And what's important there also is make sure you're consistent around, like what I see a pitfall as well is some people will just randomly give a number to a lead and then give very specific data on like deals 1, which in some cases even less than the original lead that they created, is really try and take the time and do that logic. Of course, maybe when the lead is generated, you won't have exact access to how much will this lead eventually be, but look at your historical data, say for every lead that we generate, only this amount convert, and what's our average basket size of a new deal, and give that value to your leads to make sure that the ad networks knows which conversions are more valuable than others.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jan, and thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Again, there is 1 month for free for new Make users, and there is the free course from Meinecke to learn more about Make. And moreover, we're gonna have more webinars focusing on the marketing side of things. So if you want to learn more about marketing and how can you use automation to improve your business and get more value for your business, we're gonna be launching a lot of webinars very, very soon. So stay tuned. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you very much, Jan, for all the valuable information.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me and Meinecke join the webinar. Cheers, Leo.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Bye.
Awesome. Bye, guys. Take care.